And welcome again to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Goldman. In this episode, I'm calling it Russ's Rant. And my rant deals with the bans for Marco Silva and Alexander Mitrovic. The suspensions have come down. I'm going to share my thoughts on that after I read the statement from the FA. And I'll give you all of my thoughts on that moving forward. Also, my thoughts on the apology from Marco and Mitro, and have I changed my mind on that? Because the punishment has been severe I think, for both, and I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on that coming up next. Also, want to mention I want to wish a very happy Passover to all the Jewish supporters of Fulham Football Club. Just want to wish everyone a very happy Passover. And as always, please do subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. Okay, before I give you my thoughts on these bans for both Marco and Mitro, I'm going to read the official statement, which is on the FA website. So I'm going to read it in full, and then I am going to comment on it. Here we go. Fulham FC, Marco Silva and Alexander Mitrovic have been sanctioned by an independent regulatory commission following a hearing in relation to their tie against Manchester United in the FA Cup on Sunday, March the 19th. Marco Silva admitted that he used abusive and insulting words, gestures, and behavior towards the match referee around the 72nd minute, that he used abusive and insulting words towards the fourth official before being sent off, and that he used abusive and insulting words, gestures, and behavior towards the fourth official after being dismissed. However, he denied that he threw a water bottle in the direction of the assistant referee and that his behavior in doing so was improper. The Regulatory Commission upheld the outstanding charge against him and imposed a 2-match touchline ban and a £20,000 fine. The manager also admitted that comments he made in the post-match press conference constitute improper conduct in that they imply bias, question the integrity of the match official, and bring the game into disrepute. As a result, the Regulatory Commission imposed an additional £20,000 fine. We claimed the standard punishment which would otherwise apply to Alexander Mitrovic for the sending off of violent conduct that he committed towards the match referee around the 72nd minute was clearly insufficient. The forward denied this, but it was upheld by the Regulatory Commission and a 3-match ban was imposed. This is in addition to the 3-match ban he had already received for the red card offense. The forward separately admitted that his behavior and language after being sent off was improper, abusive, insulting, and threatening, and the Regulatory Commission imposed an additional 2-match ban and a £75,000 fine. In total, the Regulatory Commission has suspended Alexander Mitrovic for 8 matches. One of these has already been served, and therefore the forward will be unavailable for Fulham FC's next 7 matches. Finally, the club admitted that it had failed to ensure its players conducted themselves in an orderly fashion around the 72nd minute, and the Regulatory Commission imposed a £40,000 fine. We await the Regulatory Commission's written reasons for these decisions, which will be published in due course. This is on the FA website. Now, what's interesting about all of this is the fines and, of course, more importantly, the bans. And first, let's talk about Marco. I think Marco, heat of the moment, I think a 2-match ban is too much. I'm just going to share that right now. I reserve the right to change my mind. When I've done prior shows, I said that whatever they decided upon, I think would be just. Looking back at this, and I am also going to factor this in, which I don't think that this Regulatory Commission factored in the apology from Marco Silva, which is very disappointing. That I think that this should have been brought down a match. So I disagree with this. In fact, I'm actually upset that they have stuck with their initial ban for Marco Silva. Understand 1, not 2. I think this is wrong. And I will explain a little bit later, but I think that the FA, this regulatory commission, are trying to make an example of Fulham Football Club. And in the end, I think it's going to bite them in the behind when other clubs have similar situations. I'm just going to mention that right now. So that's on Marco. I disagree with the amount of his ban. Mitro's 8 matches, I think, is way too much, extremely too much. They doubled the amount from the 3 to the 6, and then they added 2 more for what he had done after he got the red card. Now, that to me, again, in the heat of the moment, I understand the reaction of the regulatory committee, but to give it an additional 2 matches, and as we're talking about, they doubled the initial 3-match ban to 6, so that gives you a total of 8, I think is way too much, extremely too much. On top of it, and I'm going to say this again along with Marco, Mitro talked to Kavanaugh. He apologized. Why is this not factored in? I think this should have been factored in to this decision. I don't see any of this in this statement. I've seen none of this. Why is this not factored in? It should have been factored into the decision. But again, like I said, this is coming from the FA, and the written decision from the regulatory commission will come out. So maybe we will learn something from that. So maybe I should wait on that. But on the face of it, 8 matches is way too much. And again, I reserve the right to change my mind. I've had a chance to really look at everything. I actually watched it back for the very first time. Thank you, Tony Gold on Twitter. Because of you, I've watched back the actual incident with Mitro. And at first glance, at the time when it happened, I actually thought it was a lot worse than it really is. Does he grab him? Yes. Does he try to get his attention? Yes. Was he trying for bodily harm? The answer is no. He was upset. He was out of order, out of line, deserves to be banned. 8 matches is an extreme amount. It's extreme for what he actually did. This is way too much. And I think this is going to affect teams for years to come. I truly believe that. A precedent has been set. I'll be talking about that in the second half of this rant. But I just think that the regulatory committee, this independent regulatory commission, have just tried to make an example of Fulham Football Club. And for years to come, this is going to affect football. In every level in the pyramid, it's going to affect football. I truly believe that. And we'll see if it plays out that way, because a precedent has been set. And I think a very bad precedent has been set to make Fulham the example of. There are so many other examples, and they went above and beyond. Like I said, they went way above and beyond. I thought 5 or 6 was within reason. When you're talking 8, I think that is just extreme for Alexander Mitrovic for what he did. Again, I had a chance to look back at it. He wasn't trying to hurt Kavanaugh. He was trying to get his attention in a very bad manner. It was a very bad action, but it wasn't meant to harm Chris Kavanaugh. I truly believe, based on what I watched, he was trying to get his attention. Very bad by Alexander Mitrovic, but I think the punishment does not fit the crime. I'm just going to say that right now, and I'm very angry about this because I think Fulham have been made an example. Alexander Mitrovic, who has not had a red card up until this point with Fulham Football Club, I think also his reputation going back to Newcastle, I think, has factored into this, which is unfair. It is completely unfair. He has done nothing to this level. He's, again, in 5 seasons with Fulham, never got a red card. Now he does. You're going to throw the book at him? I completely disagree with how much Alexander Mitrovic was given, and it's unfair to Fulham Football Club. On top of it, if you're going to do this, if the FA and their regulatory commission are going to do this, I'm going to ask the question, why is Ivan Toney still playing right now? Why is he still allowed to play for Brentford? Reportedly, he has admitted to gambling. He's admitted this, and they still have not given him his punishment. They've not basically done anything up until this point. He probably is going to serve a lengthy ban. But my question is, why has he not been banned yet? And why has Alexander Mitrovic swiftly been banned? Just not fair. Two different sets of rules. One for Brentford, one for Fulham. Tell me why. Tell me why. I really want to know why. I am so angry about this. It's so unfair the way Fulham have been treated. Did they deserve a fine? Did Marco deserve a fine and also a ban? Yes. Mitro deserved a ban, yes. But the amount that they both have given, I think, is unfair. And I'm not afraid to say it. I think this is going to come back and affect football for years to come with other clubs. This is just the beginning. And if it doesn't, shame on them, because I'm telling you right now, every incident that happens with another club, I'm going to be mentioning on Cottage Talk moving forward. I'm going to be watching for every incident, and I'm going to be talking about it, and I'm going to be tweeting about it to put pressure on the FA to do what they did to Fulham. A precedent has been set, and they better follow that precedent. Coming up next to end this Russ's rant, which, as you can tell, I'm a little bit angry, I'm going to talk about should Marco and Mitro have apologized, and also about this precedent being set. Okay, to finish up the show, I'm going to talk about others coming out there, and both Mitro and Marco should not apologize again because of this. And basically, moving forward, they shouldn't apologize. And let me just say this. I understand where other supporters are coming from, because where did it get you? It got you nowhere in regards to this ruling, these bans, and the fines. It got you nowhere. However, I'm not changing my mind. I believe Marco and Mitro did the right thing by apologizing. It did not affect the ruling, and that is unfortunate. But that's on this regulatory committee and the FA, not on Marco and Mitro and Fulham Football Club. They did the right thing. And I'm just going to say this, and you can agree or disagree with me. I'm a father. I try to teach my children the right way by saying, when you make a mistake, you own up to it. You apologize for it. And you're better off for it, and hopefully you won't make that same mistake again. Apologizing is not a sign of weakness. It actually shows strength. I truly believe that. So if this happens again, if a Fulham player gets out of line, or if Marco gets out of line, they should do the exact same thing. Absolutely. I'm not changing my mind on this. I blame the FA and this regulatory committee for not factoring that in enough. That has nothing to do with the apologizing itself. That was the right thing to do. So I blame the FA on that. And like I said, the regulatory committee. They definitely should always apologize. I have no issue with apologizing. In fact, I think you should, when you make a mistake, own up to your mistakes. That's just how I live my life. You might disagree with me, but I'm glad that they did this, and I'm not changing my mind on that. I respect all the other Fulham supporters. You're entitled to your opinion. You should feel bad about how this all played out. However, I'm not going to change my mind in feeling that apologizing was the right thing. Okay. Now, to end the show, I'm going to talk about the precedent that has been set here. So now you have the situation with Mitro. And all I'm going to say is this, is that it needs to be followed by the FA moving forward. There are going to be other situations that come up. And let's just say, and I'll just throw it out there, what if a player on Arsenal has a similar situation at the end of the season? Are the FA going to turn the other way because it's Arsenal, because it might affect the end of their season? I'm going to be watching situations that come up. Again, I'm just throwing it out there. This is a fictional situation, but if it happens to an Arsenal player, a Liverpool player, the same precedent should be given here. The same type of ban should be given. It's now been set, and it should be followed moving forward. When a player does something similar, and they will, they should be banned accordingly from what happened here with Alexander Mitrovic. And if they're not, they are frauds, the FA. They need to keep the same standard, not just for Fulham Football Club, but for every club. And I'm going to be watching them to make sure that they do. And if they don't, I'm going to call them out on it. And I hope other Fulham supporters do as well. I'm going to make it my life's mission the rest of the way to follow every single situation like this, because that's how much this has angered me. And I'm going to call out every one of them, because what happened to Fulham has been extreme. They did wrong here. They actually owned up to it, and they got punished way too much for this. Sorry, disagree with the punishment. Way too severe. And that's how I'm going to end this show. Okay. Well, listen, as always, please do subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. It does help other Fulham supporters find us, and I do appreciate everyone who watches and listens to the show. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Cottage Talk. My name is Russ Goldman. Thank you, as always, for watching and listening to Cottage Talk, now part of the talkSPORT Fan Network.